Woke up, tech talk, news flash, AI rolling in future in a dash. Digital dreams, cold and safe. We got the vision, never out of sync. AI, flies it to the sky. Digital world, we
I'm
reaching
holding it so
high.
that it'll play properly. So Chris has an important public service announcement.
Welcome to Digital Nexus, the greatest podcast I have ever listened to.
Wow, thanks, Chris. That was amazing.
You're welcome,
And
AI Chris.
No, not at all. 11 Labs, Chris, which is kind of crazy because I don't know if are we starting from here? But yeah, let's just start from here. But
We can loop back. Let's loop back. The introductions. Quick one. Welcome to you, Mark. How
hi,
have you been?
Hi, how's it going? Feels like it's been so long since we last spoke. It's been 7 days.
7 days to the dot.
Now, 7 days in the AI world. I think that's like 1 year on Earth.
Maybe more.
Yeah, probably more.
If we look at the trends and shit that's changing in our ecosystem right now.
It's ridiculous. And even the stuff I'm going to show, like, it's not something new. It's been around for a little while, but it's just fun to actually put it out there and stuff now that we've got some content from the podcast. But yeah, I've been good. There's been a lot of stuff happening tonight. We'll probably talk about that later. There's a panel downstairs at Fishburners. We are in Stone and Chalk right now. You know, we like to go amongst the different startup hub communities because they're all so supportive. But yeah, there's an AI panel I'm getting ready for tonight.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. My week's been interesting. It's been very focused on delivering some interesting projects for people, which strangely I just realized I can't actually talk about. So that's about as far as that conversation can go through.
Well, my mission for the rest of this episode is to extract the insights of information. So what color hair does the client have?
How do I convince someone to tell me everything they know?
Yeah, exactly. How do I make one of those truth serums and stuff with only hand sanitizer, a battery, and some water and coffee? Like, I'm sure there's a way. MacGyver it.
I was going to say, clearly mine's a bit darker. I came up with torture results.
Oh, no. Dark to one, opportunity to another. But that sounds like a really good and interesting week, even though you can't talk about it, which is great.
Yes.
So I guess the episode's done.
Yeah, well done. That was good.
Well done.
No, it's been good. My little one has been sick, unfortunately.
How are you feeling?
I have discovered...
Keep your distance.
There's the invisible wall in front of us. Yeah. I have discovered that if I want to avoid getting sick, I just drink whiskey. So I've become an alcoholic.
Medical advice,
but I'm
financial advice, medical advice, legal advice, all in this episode.
But I'm not sick, so that's great. Yeah, definitely don't do that. That is an awful thing to do. But yeah, a couple of shots of whiskey clears the throat. It's great.
I think it's good, especially like as pre-workout right before like a big run.
That's right.
I find I get more relaxed. Although there was one time I was on my way to the gym and I accidentally went to the gin. And I had a couple of like gins and it wasn't meant to be a pre-workout. It just kind of happened that way. I went for a run. I was really relaxed. Like the body wasn't stiff. It was just like, yeah, I mean, it helped that it was super cold outside. So it was all fogged up on the glass and stuff inside because people on the treadmills and stuff and they're right near the windows. But I walked in, I'm like, I feel like running.
Stench of alcohol pouring off you.
And I ran well. It was, now 3 gins might have stopped it. Like two.
Oh, it was only 2. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it wasn't. Yeah, okay. This was a slow sort of warm up to
fitness advice too, folks. Like you're getting it all.
I'm reminded of the Simpsons episode where Homer walks it. It's like a gime. A gime. Oh, a gime.
Yeah. So I went to the gime and stuff, and so that was really good. But no, there's been some really interesting things, and we're going to go to it in the news. But since this is the 3rd episode, I did something kind of funky. Ooh. Which I'm showing on screen here, and I guess we'll get the screenshots in because it's we're in a different room here, folks. Scary. This is a smaller screen, so we've moved a little bit closer. But what's basically happened is that inside of Psych, I took our transcripts. I took it into Fireflies to split between the people. I could do it with other tools and stuff, but I like Fireflies. And basically what I did was things like...
So Fireflies is you extract audio directly out of the audio file or directly out of the
I can load an MP3. I load an MP3 and basically it's not meant for this. It's like its main purpose is to actually record your calls and give you summaries and stuff. But the problem I find with it is that maybe they're fixing it, but I can't interact with it after. It just gives me the summary. It's not got a tool in there that I can go play around with, and that's fine. So I extract usually transcripts from there, but we didn't record this on a call. So we recorded this as a video file. I took out the MP3, it's one of the only ones that you can actually upload a file into, and it splits the voices. It recognizes that Chris speaks differently to Mark. And what I basically did was I took episode 1 and I asked it a few questions about episode 1, episode 2, just for summaries. We can talk about that later. But the main point, Chris, was that I did this. I got it to talk about the style and tone of voice of how we speak. And more importantly, when people do this, they forget to add in that you need to put in a quote. Like, give me quote examples where you're saying that I am casual and conversational. Or give me quote examples, because unless you have those, casual and conversational could mean anything in terms of how you speak. So it said we're casual and conversational. Apparently, we're humorous and playful. That's probably me, more so than Chris.
I love this. This is just hitting our remember the triangle we talked about in terms of the type of podcast you want. Something is warm and welcoming.
Oh yeah,
really
exactly,
hilarious
exactly.
or informative, and it's touching the
this.
ones we wanted. Yeah,
we were planning this, but this is like actually validation.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. We're hitting our points.
We're informed and relaxed discussions. Hopefully, you're all relaxed. We are engaging and interactive, and saying things like. That's right. We could set up a proper domain exchange for that. So engaging and interactive, apparently that's an example of that.
Excellent.
Topical and current. Chris has said, I've been testing out a couple of tools on the sales front for AI. Has been a sales front. Now, obviously, it's how good the transcript has picked up, but I think that's pretty right. And a few other things there. But taking that as a style is really important, because that sets the scene for something that I could do next, which was I actually asked it. And this is probably the end of podcasters, folks, right at the very beginning for us. But I asked it, based on the style, can you give me a conversation that Chris, you and I would have with a topic such as AI fears? And can I play something for you?
Yes, please.
Are you ready to hear this?
I'm fearful.
I'm fearful too. And, folks at home, be fearful too. So this is the digital twins test, I've called this one.
So, Chris, there's a lot of fear-mongering going on about AI these days. It's like every other headline is screaming about how AI is going to take our jobs or make decisions we won't understand.
Yeah, it's a hot topic for sure. But, a lot of that fear comes from misunderstandings about what AI actually is and what it can do. It's not this all-knowing, all-powerful entity. It's a tool. And like any tool, it's about how we use it.
Right, and I think it's important to remember that AI has been around for a while now. It's not just about robots taking over the world, it's about algorithms that can help us sort through data, make predictions, and even automate some of the more mundane tasks.
Exactly. And let's not forget the benefits, right? AI can help us in healthcare, education, and even in fighting climate change. It's not just about the potential risks.
For sure, but I guess the fear comes from the idea that AI could get out of control or be used in harmful ways. It's that classic technology gone wrong scenario.
True, but that's where regulation and ethical considerations come into play. We need to have conversations about how to govern the use of AI and ensure it's used responsibly.
Chris.
It's not just about the tech itself, but about the system.
I'm all for it.
This sounds like boring, Chris.
This is wise, Chris. This is boring, wise, Chris.
Did you ever remember Rick and Morty? You ever watch Rick and Morty?
Have I ever watched Rick?
And they had night persons, so they'd go to sleep, and then they'd be sleepwalking, but you could program the sleepwalkers to do stuff. You sound like night person, Chris.
just dead inside, unable to. I've no soul.
Emotions.
I don't care about anyone else's.
So it's kind of true. Artists were like, oh, yeah, it's got no emotion. But the thing is, with so the way that we did that, like that was generated with Psych, the transcript, and then I threw it into this, and you can see a history of like different things that I've gotten the AI to say. So I give it Chris's voice. I basically. So I basically put in MP3s of your voice snippets from the video, and then I put in that text, and it's got Chris, it's got myself in here. It's pretty cool, except for the fact that you've got this setting that if I just go over here to settings, you've got this style exaggeration setting. And what happened was when I went like too exaggerated for your voice, this is what it does.
Yeah, true, but that's where regulation and ethical considerations come into play. We need to have conversations about how to govern the use of AI and ensure it's used responsibly. It's not just about the tech itself, but about the systems we put in place around it.
That's playing on this screen here, but apparently exaggerated means
I just stopped being able to talk properly. My brain is broken.
Yeah. So basically, there's that, and put it this way, it's good for some things. Now, I know that we could certainly have a podcast. Like if you're away, I'm away next week. I haven't told you yet, but like I'm in Melbourne next week, so I'll physically be here. You could just have it recorded. You could put like that character that's there before. You could actually have
Just run you virtually.
Yeah,
just make it say the things I want you to say
on scrent. That's it. Yeah, exactly. I'll have zero input stuff into this, guys. It's a roll of the dice, just like all generative AI is. But anyway, that's I thought that was a bit of fun just to get things started.
That is really scary. But it's interesting because it talks to like the stuff that's happening in video. I mean, it talks to what's happening, the scary stuff that's being released from politics, overseas, governments, like even having presidents saying things that they didn't actually say. These are the tools that are scarily doing it. And I guess, talking to boring Chris, the legislation and security that needs to be put in place to try and make sure people don't use it for the wrong things. It's like,
I mean, he sound pretty presidential to me.
Well, that's it. Boring Chris knows what's up.
But that is part of that style thing. I think there's just these little things that you need to do when you're using AI, because those are all like building blocks. That if you don't have these things included, and it doesn't matter, there's so many different ways to say it to get that information out, and you can use the AI as like a tool to help that. But you just notice these things the more and more you are immersed in it, and we wouldn't have known that on day one of using it. So that's why it's really about encouraging people to use AI, whatever tools it is out there, because you see, and to keep going, not just to stop when you get that first kind of hurdle and stuff, because someone might use that and go, oh, that sounds like nothing like me. Well, if you tweak it and you get the proper style, as in style with actual quotes from your writing or your speaking, you're actually going to get something like a lot better. Even a boring sounding Chris and Mark. I think Mark was a little bit more excited to be there. He sounded quite Aussie. When I first used to do that with 11 Labs, it sounded overly posh. And so I sounded like I was still living in London and trying to mimic the accent. But anyway, what's next on the agenda, Chris? What do you got?
Well, it's an interesting thing because that you're hinting at, and I've forgotten her name, which is really bad. But it's I think she was one of either the original developers or founders that worked with OpenAI, and she was in an interview.
Mira Murati.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that was asked to her is like around, pushing that fear-mongering discussion and taking jobs.
On creatives and stuff.
Exactly. And one of her responses, which I thought was was a good response, was around, it's got to be about the education of how we use AI properly and how we integrate it. Not pushing that fear-mongering factor or all the errors and wrong things. It's like, it's the education of how can it apply to the things that we do. Yeah. Which I thought was a really good response.
I think so. And she's been lambasted a little bit because something to do with her, and I haven't listened to the full thing, so I don't have full context,
to be honest,
around creative jobs that just shouldn't be there or shouldn't have been there. But it's like, if that's really, if it really is what she said, not quite right, because like we had to have people that were elevator operators. We had to have jobs that are no longer there anymore to get to the point where we're like, hey, that's the thing to make efficient. And it's just back and forth. Like, I think it's just part of the cycle.
Exactly. And I think that was, I feel like that was the intention of what she was saying, but I think...
And maybe it's probably taken out of context.
And, well,
like, media never do that.
She said it in context, but the problem was that I don't think that's how she intentionally wanted to articulate it. But because like there is, I would argue, on a broader scale, there are a lot of jobs that don't need to be done. Look at consulting, for example, right? Look at us. Like there's a lot of jobs that I do. It's like, why I shouldn't be doing this. There's no need for this. And so I think from a broad industry perspective, there are key areas where that term, that what she was saying does apply. I think from a creative space, like that was probably the wrong thing to say. Yeah,
in front of a bunch of creators, not getting out of that building. Like, my goodness. No, I don't know where she did it. But it's like, context is definitely king here, because things can be taken always both ways. Like, some people might hear that and go, great, that's an opportunity, even as a creative, to do more. Like, this is the time it is changing. We've gone from paintbrushes to keyboards and mouses to, now commanding it what to do. So if you're in a situation like that, I guess the thing is, how do you get to that next level? If everyone can now uplift to the same level you're at, if you're eager enough, like, and look, there's so many different drivers for your eagerness and motivation to do something new, and we get why people are just tired, it's family, it's all these things. But in a situation like that, if you've got the opportunity to and you've got the energy to, this is actually a great opportunity to up the game. And you see some artists doing that. You see some on Spotify going, fully embracing, yeah, use my voice, do this, and like do stuff with it. And I forget who the artists were, but they were doing something where they were just like putting it out there. I think it was Elon's ex. I forget what her name is, Grimes. I think it was Grimes. She was putting stuff out there and letting people do stuff with it with the AI. So I think it's either embrace or fear, and I'd rather embrace the fear.
Yeah, embrace the fear and just embrace it all. It does beg the question, and this is like maybe we're getting too philosophical right up front, but
Let's do it.
Is around the job side of it. And let's look at it from a developer standpoint. This would be the easiest one, where you now have tools like Cloud, for example, AI like 3.5.
What did you call it?
Claude 3.5. I
thought you said cloud.
I did say cloud because my brain
Hello.
went to cloud. I am Claude. I am Claude.
Welcome.
Claude AI. So the ability for it to produce front end code is outstanding, right? Like, and you can fast track.
Did you use
a lot of-
artifacts as well?
Oh yeah.
Oh
It's
my
insane.
gosh,
I love
yeah.
it. And imagine, we go back a couple of years, you get a front end developer doing something, it could take 3 days, but now they can do a lot of the work in, an hour, fixing a few things and tweaking some stuff.
Efficiency.
How should that person charge the same amount of time for all their effort in that smaller amount of time? Or should they be now looking at other ways to improve things, to fill in the gaps that would usually take up three days of their time? Or do they now only have to charge an hour of their time to fix and implement things?
You so on that consulting kind of side of things, it's very akin to the movie Margin Call, which is from capital markets days, where Jeremy Irons walks in and people are worried about the price that they're selling. They're selling bad assets basically to their other firms and stuff, and there's a existential kind of crisis in there. It's like, well, these are worthless. We're selling them at that high kind of thing, and it's kind of the same thing. And his point is that you sell at what the market is willing to pay for. And sure, you could be that first leader in that consulting space that goes, no, I'm actually going to charge half because, or whatever it is, I'm going to charge the fair market value. I think it's this. Up to you. I think the market on average is going to be the dictator of like where charges are going to be, because if you're too high, people are just going to go in droves to someone else. If you're too low, because you see that thing with art, like someone puts a piece of art out, it's like $100. I don't want to buy it. It's $10,000. Oh, I want to take a look at it. Oh yeah, it's really good. Like I now want to buy it. So you got to find that level. There's a bit of an art form, and guess what? AI can help with that. But I think it's that. I think it's the market's going to decide. So you can have your existential crisis, but it doesn't. Yeah. Put it this way: charge as much as you can. Really.
Yeah. That's right. I'm going to charge more for that 1 hour.
Yeah. That was like
that's
that little 5-minute thing that's going to cost me later on. Like Chris charges me for all of this. So
Yeah, by the second as well.
Yeah.
By the hours.
we should have a timer.
That's
I
right.
was actually thinking about that. Like when you're sitting in a place where you're in startup world, rent's a thing, and obviously other costs, but just for rent, you should have like the first of the month after you pay your rent, you've got like something that is just like raising in price, divided by 31 days, your X many thousand rent, and it just gets higher. So by the 15th day, you're looking like, wow, that's how much rent I'm going to pay. What a motivator right there.
I would be so scared to look at that number, just even a mortgage. Imagine from a mortgage.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And here's the interest rate that's put on top of it.
It's not a mortgage calculator, it's a mortgage reminder.
It's right. You actually haven't even touched your mortgage. Yet. You're
greatest
only
motivator.
paying off the interest.
You don't need Gary Vaynerchuk. You don't need all that. You just need like a picture of your partner, spouse, etc., and mortgage.
Angry faces.
It'd be funny if it actually gets angry over time. Like it smiles at first when it's like near zero, and then it just gets progressively angrier. Anyway, what are we talking about?
Should we jump into some quick news stuff?
Yeah,
I thought this would be an interesting thing for us to start.
You saw something
exploring.
recently. Was the last night?
I'll skim through a lot of things, but last night was obviously the Samsung Unpacked. And I was a little bit disappointed with what they were showing. It was, I think a lot of it had already kind of leaked in, the good old technology world, leaking things before they actually get announced. So you had the new flip phones, the Z
cool.
Fold, and the Flip. You have a new set of earbuds that are coming out, kind of looking a bit like the Apple, the AirPod Pros.
Okay.
Samsung's going down that right now with the cool extra features. They like to differentiate itself. We had the Ring, which was their big announcement.
The Ring?
Yeah, the new not the
movie.
The Samsung Ring. No, not the Ring, the movie. Yeah, they've done a whole new horror stream of devices coming out. Now, so the Samsung Ring, which is the benefit of health and other things for tracking
very
on your
cool.
finger, 7
Yeah.
days of battery life. So it had some cool announcements in that, but something that I wanted them to push was that AI agenda a bit further. And they only touched on a couple of things. There were some new features with images, some generating. You could draw into the note,
cool.
into your note now, and it can click a generator, and it can turn it into like a little fancy art piece.
Oh, wow.
Fancy and very, very bracketed.
Okay.
Or common, I should say that.
Okay.
But if we compare it to things like what Apple's done or what Apple's upcoming with their AI stuff, I feel like this was the opportunity for them to push a little bit harder, a little bit further. And I don't think they've separated themselves out enough in that space to keep holding on to the benefits they had within the AI. And I was a bit disappointed by that.
I wonder if they're just being cautious or something, and it's just one of those things that they don't want to oversell because they've seen, we spoke about this in a previous one a little bit, and I've written about it. But the whole kind of like rabbit in the hair where OpenAI is going out with like Sora and all these crazy things and stuff, and then they don't release it or they delay things like voice. And then you've got Luma, Runway, and others, and Claude, Anthropic, that is, coming out with stuff. And when they say it, it's out there. So I do wonder if there's a bit of caution because, I heard a lot. Like when they did the S24, my brother, shout out to Patrick, he got the S24 and has been playing around with it. And he's like, it's got some AI features and stuff in here. So I thought that they'd go harder at that.
So did I. I mean, because if you look at the branding of the actual event itself, they've got the AI logo sprinkled over it. And like I said, they did mention a few things. Another one I missed is like they did put some AI stuff into the health program that they use, the health tool, the Samsung's Health. And the Ring itself, when it collects all the data, there's a bit of AI to help visualize and talk to you about, things you need to change and do in the health space, depending on whatever is tracked against you. But but that was it. It was just really minor. I thought there'd be some more integration, some more improvements to the existing AI infrastructure that they've got into the tool, into the actual phones themselves.
The share price hasn't moved much either. Like they've done that and it's pretty flat. It's up barely up on the day, and it's trading down right now because the Korean markets are open. I'm just looking at it here on Google, but interesting that it hasn't really taken much effect and that they didn't say AI much. Have you seen news articles like from this morning?
No, not on the AI front. That's the thing. It's been a very hard push on the tech itself. You look at any of the YouTubers, if you look at any of the blogs that have gone out, even and some of the news presses, it's all just been about the devices with the flip phones,
even Marcus,
the headphones. Even Marcus apparently didn't. He mentioned like not much was said around AI in the whole discussion, other than the existing tools and slight tweaks.
I think maybe look, it could be them just being cautious, or it could be them just being pragmatic with it. And I think I've seen this with others where they don't want to talk about AI. They want to talk about what it enables. It's like, hey, you could say one thing, we're this company, we're using AI to do this, or you can say, we're doing this really well for customers, you should buy our product, and not really having to mention the technology. So maybe it's that, who knows?
Maybe. We'll see what happens.
Okay. What else you got?
A lot of interesting, it kind of hints on the stuff that we just spoke about with the audio that you played back. Is there's a lot of issues around plagiarism that are now occurring, and actually,
I give permission for a fake mark to be marked.
Yeah, I did not, but I'm here for it, so I'm all good with it. You can get away with it this one time. If it happens again,
Okay,
that's it. So there's a lot of plagiarism that's been going about with people releasing articles that are clearly using AI to write this stuff. I saw a really hilarious one. This would have been a couple of weeks ago, where someone had done a tech article on some new tech that was being released. And they're talking about the latest and best GPUs for 2024.
Cool.
And they were calling out the 2000 Nvidia series, which were like 4 or 5 years old. I was just looking at it going, this person has clearly used AI to write this article. It's just put the wrong stuff in it.
They've got the wrong stuff, or their RAG model if they were using their own documents. And this speaks to the whole hallucinations thing and inaccuracies that I want to get into later. But it's only as good as the information you feed it, and it's only as good as how you steer it. If you don't steer it to the right kind of information, like they probably didn't there, they just asked a general question, probably from the model, it's going to give you bad answers. So, and then worse is if you don't actually check the work that comes out and you just push it out there.
That's true.
3 bad things. My goodness.
Yeah, yeah. But then The Wired's come out with an article in a similar space, just talking around how because of the trending language around AI, people are now putting it into their articles even when there's no real intention to talk about it, which is now bolstering their results in Google. So now people are impacting SEO with stories that aren't actually relevant just to get more attention in the SEO space, which is quite interesting. So there's like a flip side for how AI is such a big hot topic at the moment. It's creating a lot of irrelevance of what people are talking about.
That is scary.
The AI bots is another one that's been coming up a lot now with particularly, I mean, we saw this quite a while ago with Google releasing their AI bot, which was able to answer and talk on phone calls for you, right?
Yeah. A couple of years ago. And we're like, wow.
And it did it without saying, hey, I'm an AI. And that is now becoming a more prominent thing with people on websites because these LLMs are able to have such really good conversations, making the user feel like they're talking to a human and saying to them, I am a human.
Yeah.
But really that is not the case at all. So that lying, which comes back to audio thing, is becoming more and more prominent, which is quite interesting. What's your take on that? Like, do you think AI, people using AI tools, should it be called out more? Or
I think it's a double-edged sword because you see Adobe, they did something that pissed off their users because they labeled everything that had even the slightest hint of, and it wasn't even generative AI, which I think there's a clear distinction between generative AI and the AI that you use within the tool, but you're the one that's removing the background. You're the one that's doing this versus like it's almost like automated AI where you just describe something and you get it to do stuff. But even then, whether it's Figma or Adobe, even if you don't know how to go through all the steps to do something, or even if you do, but it's just faster, that should not be punished. Like there were all these images labeled as AI and then they had to relabel it with a more generic kind of label so that it wouldn't sound as bad. But still, it just leads to this thing where unless you do nothing to an image, you don't touch it up, you don't do whatever, you don't use something that's got AI, or everything in the Adobe suite that has AI in it, unless you know that, you can't then go use and create something that doesn't have that dreaded potential AI label there. I think it's such a dangerous kind of game on the one hand. On the other hand, we do need to protect. So it's only bad if you think AI, having that AI label, assisted by AI, whatever, is a bad thing. Now, at the moment, we haven't had enough education. We haven't had enough public discourse. It's just been, as always with new things, it's the fear that comes there first. But when there's more mainstream,
it's moved so fast, right? People
because it has moved so
on what's going on.
Exactly, and it goes back to OpenAI wanting to release this stuff so that we're not just shocked in 5 years' time when we get AI robots walking down the street. They wanted to push, and this is the flip side to seeing that actually it's a good thing, because we would get that shock if all of a sudden, if it wasn't for, if we didn't see ChatGPT, then all of a sudden it's 2024 and we see all the capabilities AI tools have right now. I think that would be far scarier than the drip feeding that we've had, even though it's been drip feeding / waterboard torturing. I don't know, like depends on how you look at it, but it's all context. But I just think that right now it's hard to say. I think it'll be probably perceived more negatively just right now with things like that. But over time, we'll just come to accept it. I remember when I was a kid, it's in the 90s, and I saw someone walking outside past my place and it looked like he was talking to himself. Like, what is going on here? He's talking to himself. He had a Bluetooth earphone, and it was the one where you just have it in the one side.
And with like the little piece that came out like closer to your mouth.
Kids.
You would turn around and you'd be like, oh, I can see.
Back in the 90s, there used to be these things called non-smartphones. And so it was just connected to that, and he was just talking on it. And my first seeing of it, it's just like, what is going on? This is weird, right? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing, right now. So, my answer is my answer, and that's all I have to say about my answer.
No, I think it's a good point, and a lot of you can see like Instagram, for example, now is even calling out when it detects that there's been some kind of AI engagement into any of the images. It calls it out for people when they're looking through Instagram now. On Samsung, the moment you edit, you can edit out the watermark, but if you do any editing to the image with AI, it puts a little watermark stamp on it to indicate to you that it is AI. But
WhatsApp has that too, because Meta, you can make images with Meta. You can talk to Meta and look up stuff, but if you make images in WhatsApp and put it into the chat, it has that watermark there. Which is cool and all, but the flip side to watermarks, and there's been studies on this. Now, sure, it just makes it simple, like right there and then, but you could either have things that there's ways to take off the watermark,
Easy,
right?
easy,
Very
easy.
easily. But then the flip side is that false positives. You could label things that are not, AI. You could put an AI label on it, and for harm, for example. So it's a really interesting thing. People have thought about other ways to do it, like with the metadata that's inside, and potentially using blockchain.
I was going to say
potentially-
blockchain, of course.
Yeah. But anyways, we'll get into that a little bit more later, or another episode. I don't know. But yeah, it's really fascinating the perceptions that people will have with tools like this.
Something I came across, which I thought was really interesting, is have you heard of Humbot?
Humbot.
Humbot.
I feel like there's a few M's missing in their name.
You've written stuff? I mean, you've used Psych, you've used
Yeah.
ChatGPT
Yep.
and the works. Have you ever looked at the writing that's come out of that and been like, oh, there's a little bit too AI?
It delves into a lot of delving, a lot of delve.
That was a funny article. There was an article you shared where there was a guy who had obviously discovered a single word and just like repeated that word all throughout his life.
And he found a way to like break. I forget what it's called, but if you get it to non-stop repeat words,
Yep.
and it doesn't work anymore. Sometimes maybe it does, but it would break and actually reveal some of the training data that was data. See, maybe I do sound like my Aussie robot, but there was that kind of stuff that was out there. And I was just going to say on the Delve thing that they've figured out why Delve is a thing because it's in the training data. It's apparently there's a lot of the use of the word Delve is there in a lot of these PubMed articles for research that it was trained on. But anyway, going back to Humbot, I do see that there's it's easy to tell when someone's just used AI without crafting it.
Exactly. And so this tool is a way now to get around that, which is kind of, it's a bit of an odd thing. I mean, it might benefit people who kind of use AI for the wrong reasons when they're creating articles and stuff like that. But
Students.
essentially,
No, I'm
yeah,
joking.
students is a perfect example of it. But it's a way now you can take the text, put it into Humbot, and it tries to humanize it a little bit more using
Very
its
good.
own AI. So it's like a trainer upon a trainer.
Something that's interesting there. Have you seen like people were doing this early on, and you probably did this when you were seeing ChatGPT out. People were using tools like Quillbot and just anything that's like a thesaurus because it would change like the words. It would take what you've written, say the same thing, but just with different words from the thesaurus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So I'm sure that they do more to it, but like some of the detectors that came out straight away were detecting false positives as well. So they were doing things like the way that humans normally, and this is like very generic, so it's not quite true, but humans normally speak with burstiness. Some sentences long, some sentences short, like up and down and stuff like that. And then perplexity, the complex words, sometimes there's complex words, sometimes not. Like, and it's just different levels of perplexity, or maybe it's like high, and we don't just use all the same kind of bland words. Like it's more of a word salad when humans speak. It's like that. But using just those two kind of features, they were like rating things as like AI probably, 90% probably AI versus not. Problem is that you could feed in old text into it and it goes, yeah, it's probably AI, depending on how you wrote. So I fed in like old things I wrote on LinkedIn and it goes, yeah, this is like 70% AI. Like, sure it is. Wait, hang on. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's an existential thing and it's like,
I was going to say, maybe you are an AI.
there you go, folks.
It's been discovered.
Wow. But yeah, I want to check it out. I definitely want to check that out because I think it's interesting. Anything that's used to save time, the malpractice kind of like, oh, they're going to use it for like bad things. It depends on how you're using it, really. Like you can use the internet, current tools that we've got. You could use the phone. You could use so much stuff for bad things
Copy
that people
paste
do.
shit out of other people's articles and Google stories all the time. Like
Exactly.
I think about
Imagine there was copy paste police.
There was
Like because we went so hard at copy paste, we actually have police out there. What do? I'm the copy paste police. Is that legal? You know.
You should see the South Park episode about this. It's hilarious. I won't get into it though.
Okay. Copyright.
Nvidia, obviously one of the largest players in the chip market with video and AI. An interesting thing I've been seeing hearing about is that shift around how businesses now probably mainly the bigger players, but they're actually starting to do their own chips in their sense. So you got
love chips.
Google, Amazon, Apple, even they've got their M3s. You got Snapdragon coming out and overshadowing things like Intel, which is a big play to try and, I guess, bolster their own profits by controlling the technology that underpins all of their AI tools. What I thought was interesting about this is there's both an upside and a downside to this. Well, the downside which I'll talk about first, there's more products that are coming out into the market from a tech place, which is really going to start saturating the decisions you make around the tools, the technologies that you use. Like, do I buy this device or that device that have different chips? Why would I want to choose either of them? There's more education required, which could open up more opportunities for people to train and educate others on it. So it's creating a more confusing market. On the upside, though, is that what we're going to start seeing is a lot of innovation in this space, which is quite exciting from a tech perspective, because the competition is now increasing more than ever. I think over the last sort of 5-6 years, you have things like AMD and Nvidia being the largest GPU players in the market. No one has come close to competing with pretty much Nvidia skyrocketing over the last couple of years, right?
Taiwan Semiconductor as well, and
But like all of those big chip manufacturers, or the people who are controlling these GPUs in particular, have been just dominating. And now with with Apple creating their M3 chips, and now with the potential that's coming out of the other chips that are being produced from the likes of Snapdragon, etc. Like there's going to be some interesting technology changes, I think, that are going to happen over the next couple of years. Which
I think that there's definitely like a lot of opportunities for companies now. Where it used to be that the opportunity was only in the software space, right? And now you've got hardware being a thing. Like tonight, the talk that we're doing down at and obviously this is filmed in front of a live studio. This is filmed, and it will have been completed by the time people watch this. But Dell Technologies and Fishburners are doing something downstairs tonight, and it's Dell providing hardware. Like you've got Microsoft that are doing the laptops with some limited capabilities right now, but that's the worst it will be. It will only get better. Dell's doing the same. AI capabilities, and the thing there, I believe, is that it's going to make it easier to do things on your own device, develop and test and try things out.
And they've recently released their new XPS Snapdragons in the 13, 14, I think, and up inch laptop sizes, which are pretty cool. And I mean, the biggest benefit there is battery life. Like previously, Intel hasn't been able to compete with the likes of Apple with any of their chips because they're so power hungry. So all the laptops that have come out in the Windows space have they last 7 hours, 5 hours sometimes. Where Apple is surpassing 10 with some of their devices. With these Snapdragon laptops, we're hitting those marks now. In some instances, beating them on the lower end Apple devices. So that's
it's opportunity.
Dell's going to be quite an interesting player in that space because they're obviously have a huge market.
Dell
laptop.
delves into.
You got this.
You
got this.
I don't know. AI, help me complete this sentence, which is exactly how we started off. Like GPT-2 was just a good sentence completer. It was a sentence completer. So crazy.
Obviously, the economics of AI getting bigger. There's a lot of power concerns that are starting to emerge in the market. There's a big focus on how we optimize that, and obviously a rise of a lot of people who are challenging it. And I mean, the biggest issue is the fact that we've come out of that blockchain era, which is also had a huge power hungry thing, and now we're adding AI on top of that. So
all the gamers must be just like hating this in one way because they're like, oh, the chips are still so expensive. Bloody blockchain folks, and it's like,
now
okay,
it's
they're
AI.
away. Bloody AI folks.
But on the flip side, the AI has a lot of benefits to gamers. And
Massively.
the stuff that's coming out is pretty cool, and I will definitely touch on that in a new episode because that's a passion space of mine.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like blockchain is face this, and they would call it in that space FUD, right? Maybe this is the first time for a lot of people that are working in AI. I don't know when.
That just happened.
Something disconnected there, folks.
We'll turn it off.
Yeah, let's just turn it off. We don't need it.
We should be able to switch it back. Is it your laptop? Is your laptop hibernated?
No, it's not. It's zero hibernation. Go to inputs.
Oh no.
Yeah, click on the HDMI 2. Just needs to turn back on. Yeah.
Continue.
That was weird, folks. Anyway.
Take two.
Take
three.
Take three. So what were we talking about?
Economics, energy consumption.
Oh yeah. So if you're coming from the blockchain space, you would have seen this kind of stuff, and it's probably new for some folks that didn't come from that. And what I'm saying is that there were people that are working in tech that have faced the backlash.
Always.
Environmental kind of stuff.
Every new innovation has some kind of energy backlash.
So weird.
Every new innovation has some kind of technology backlash.
I think because you were speaking about energy consumption, it's like, I'm going to get out of here.
So people cheating.
There's literally a new TV. So this room, we're sitting upstairs here, folks. There's a new TV that is going to be installed, and it's just sitting over here. We didn't get the time to do it ourselves. Anyway, my point is that they would call it FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and it was a way for the blockchain space to call out the criticisms. And some would use it as like, oh, you're just fudding and stuff. And it's like some of these critiques are true right now, but it doesn't mean that the AI or the technology is static. And so blockchain evolved to overcome some of those critiques.
Yep.
And just the same thing that we're seeing with AI. And on
It's
the
gonna be the
energy
same.
side of things, we're doing exactly the same. It's like energy is like, oh, you're using so much power and stuff and consumption. Now, in the world of energy, like a lot of stuff is going towards green. So in a future where everything is green, and yes, we're not there yet, and there's like a lot of ups and downs, there's a lot more complexity. That's a whole nother thing to get into. But just hypothetical, in a future that is heading towards one way, which is much greener, then these fears about energy consumption are not a thing anymore. So it's interesting.
I'll be cautious about how you say that. I don't think I mean, in the future, yes, our goal is to get more greener, but if we keep using more energy, obviously that goal to reach that point is going to get further and further and further away, right?
Definitely nuance and stuff to it. So, I don't think it's on any of these channels here, but there's definitely, a lot more into that, and we're not unpacking that here. That's not fair for us to do.
No.
But the AI will. No, I'm just joking. So what else you got?
I just typed it in. We're already solving it.
Oh, there you go.
Video generation has been a big thing, and I think it's been one of those places where AI has been trying to take a lot of, take its space over, and so we can do some generation without having to worry about, to text to video. That's the dream, right? We could just write what we want, and then suddenly this beautiful video appears. And there's been quite a lot of new launches that have been coming out over the last couple months, which I wanted to touch on, stuff that I've been playing with recently. You saw making the video for our intro. I was trying to dip that in to try and do it, but I think the manual input is still a high need in this space, and it's getting there.
Fair.
But we've got the likes of Luma Dream Machine, which we know about. That's been one of the biggest players that's come out with their new update over the last couple of weeks, which has been which has been really powerful. They've hit the ground running with a lot of merging imagery with your contextual inputs, and then to create the video as the output. But again, still needs a lot of tweaking.
Okay.
We've got some organizations over in China which have released some pretty cool new technologies with the likes of Pika, which is still a bit fiddly, but again, pretty awesome. And then you've got Leonardo Motion, which has come out with some new updates recently as well. But they're very like bite-sized content. So you put an image in there and it turns that image into some kind of 3D render, and it does it really, really well. It's actually quite
I've seen
quite
some
cool.
examples. Have you been playing around with it?
I played around with I haven't played around with Pika, but with Luma and Leonardo, I played around with those. It's very, very, very cool.
I was going to say that I've seen some of the examples that are out there, and they're mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's crazy looking stuff that's out there, and no doubt there's going to be more full-length kind of things. It's just like with Suno, which is for the music side of things. The first ones they came out with.
And for people listening to our podcast, that intro, that's a Suno generated intro.
It's crazy. And been playing around more with that. Like I did something yesterday, I won't play it here, but where I take a blog that I wrote about like a while ago. It was like remixing blockchain and comparing it to hip hop, and how artists will take old and mix it in with new and create new things from that. But take this article, ChatGPT or Claude. I think I use Claude in this case as an example. Cloud. I use Cloud because they're doing arts. And so Cloud basically took it and created lyrics, and it goes, here's a verse, here's a chorus, here's a verse 2, here's a chorus, here's a refrain, here's like all these like, I don't know, music things. I don't know, right? But it created it. I throw that into Suno, and it just asked me like, what's the style? And I said, 2000s, hip hop, funky, blah, blah, blah. And it came up with some interesting, and it is a roll of the dice because there's not much that you can do to control apart from just describing things. I could have described it better, but it's interesting that you could turn a whole lot of content. I could turn this episode, like now that you've listened to Chris and Mark talk a little bit.
This whole thing has been an AI. We haven't actually said anything.
Oh, people don't realize. It's crazy. None of what we've said is, what is real anymore?
What is real? What is real? That is the question.
Like, how do we know that everyone is not AI themselves and stuff?
That's it.
Yeah. Lana's not going to know. Your little daughter, she's not going to know.
She's also AI.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Okay.
I'm living in a VR dream.
I love it. It's is it Blade Runner? Where Blade Runner's a great movie. But in any case, I think going back to the video stuff, we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to use a lot more of it. It was images before, doing stuff for clients and whatnot. Now that video is becoming a thing, it's going to be easier. And it's this, going back to it, are you going to be fearful of this, or are you going to embrace it? Let the courts decide these things that are out there. And I think that it is important to find ways to be ethical in terms of what you're doing.
Agreed.
But it's just such a tough, I know some people that maybe they don't want to use it yet because they want to wait until it's all cleared up that it's ethical to use and all that. And I think that's very right to do. But on the other hand, the flip side is that when your competitors are using it, do you just stay behind? If it's taking them 1 hour to do something that takes you a whole week, and they can just do so much more, do you stay behind? Like, where do we kind of like go here in terms of like being a business and staying competitive? There's a line that you need to figure out for yourself. We can't do it. Like, it's up to you. And you could be on the other side and go, I'm not touching anything AI, and like shouting at all the AI people that are using stuff whilst they're, it's so tough out there whenever there are these transitions. I don't know if we had this kind of plagiarism copyright, like this is unethical kind of thing when it came to the internet. So this is an interesting.
Oh, we definitely did. Like, if you think about when the launch of the internet, people were copying things. I think the difference is that it was more into the real environment. It wasn't stuff that was being plagiarized and copied as much on an online space. But people would take articles and present them as their own, write books as their own, and all that type of stuff. So definitely the plagiarism factor has always been there, but it's skyrocketed more than ever, right? Unfortunately.
It is. It's tough, but I think this is a part of what people need to navigate. And each individual kind of context is gonna depend, because you could have something where it's like, oh, so this is my context, and it's like, oh, you should do this, and then they throw something else in there. It's like, oh, well, then you should do that. Oh, but then there's also this consideration. Okay, fine, you should do this. It's like that Simpsons one. It's like the froyo. He's like. The froyo is like, it's only 10 cents. It's like, oh, that's good, but it's cursed. Oh, that's bad. It's like, whatever.
The emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it's hard out there, folks. Like but we're here to show you that how these tools work and whatnot, and just how we think about some of the potential ethical dilemmas as well.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of news.
Yeah, please.
So this is something that came out last year from Quantum Black, which is one of the consultancy arm that is, I think it's the AI arm of McKinsey.
Last financial year?
No, this is, most recently, so May 30, 2024. Yeah. They're not in the future, Chris. Were you thinking it was going to be 2025?
You said last year.
Oh, right. So what I was not finished saying in terms of my English was that last year they came out with this, and this is the update.
Right. Okay. That was an important part, dude.
Oh, right. The poise. Cut the what wire?
Cut the wire.
So, anyways, McKinsey came out with this report, interactive. You can see some cool stuff here. I'm just going to skip ahead. They talk about usage. They talk about areas that are using it. Marketing is right up there. But the important thing for me, and this is actually what led to my working in this space. Thank you, all these people that have put this stuff together. This one here, this chart right here. Let's get rid of the ad.
Probably made in Claude. Probably made in Cloud.
Could have been. We could give this to Cloud and go recreate this website. So that first thing there, that it'd be hard to see on the screen until you actually see the chart, but it's basically inaccuracies. And this is from a survey that they did for businesses that they spoke to, that what's your biggest concerns, and intellectual property and so privacy was a big thing, as well as inaccuracies. And it's still a big thing, and it's actually gotten more concerning for businesses, especially the inaccuracy side of things. And we see people talking about this, like, oh, I used AI and it didn't give me the right results, or lawyers used it, didn't check the results, so that's their fault, and then put it in front of a judge. And yes, it gave inaccurate results, but you should have checked the work. Like, you would check the work of a junior. So my point is that this survey led to us getting more deep at my company, Not Centralized, and then we built Psych, and now Psych is doing its roadshow because we're raising capital for it, which is great. But this is what led to us building in the way that we have, because inaccuracies need to be addressed.
It's an interesting thing, because even in a lot of the conversations that I'm having now with the customers that I have, one of the questions I will ask before we go into engagement is their opinion and understanding of AI, and therefore are you comfortable that we would utilize it,
Yeah.
or do you have
Yeah,
systems
yeah.
in place that you use that we can take advantage of, or can we introduce something and make sure that we're doing it in a secure way? So therefore,
Even better if
me
if
having
you
to
can-
shift
yeah.
how I work to
Yeah.
cater for the fact that they may have risks, concerns, and stuff like that, and that's actually been for a lot of conversations a really big, and important piece to be speaking about with them.
And I think it will continue to be for a little while. And we see it as a spectrum in terms of the inaccuracies. And on the one end of the spectrum is just when you use a raw GPT tool. I say raw, like cloud, like ChatGPT, etc. And all you're doing is just asking it a question. Now, obviously, there's that whole hurdle that most people have to overcome, that this is not Google search, although you can treat it if connected in the right way and using the right tools, you can use it like Google search. That's not to say that you can't,
Yep.
but just by raw AI model, it's not Google search. And if you're just using it as that, the hallucination rate is so much higher. It will make stuff up. But then if you use RAG, which is basically you give it documents, you point it to the website or you point it to the documents. Raw RAG, where you're not even, like, you've just got 1,000 documents and you go figure it out, you're getting the AI to figure it out. That is less hallucinations, but still high, right?
Yep.
Still higher than the next level, which is where you, the expert, know that it's in these documents, and I want to compare it to what's in these documents here, and you're curating it. You get much better experience, and then even better is where you're doing that and not just one-shotting the answer, not just going, here's the answer, that's it. No, you're going back and forth and iterating. And that whole kind of spectrum,
Validating as well.
and validating it.
Very important part of it.
Humans in the loop are the massive thing that's important here, and validating that humans have been in the loop, being able to prove, Chris, that humans have been in the loop, whether it's for insurance or accounting or like other industry. This is where blockchain comes in and what we put in, because we've got ways that you can validate in Psych that I did this. I typed this in, I got this output, I read it. But my point, back to the hallucinations, we've spoken and written about this, and I'll put it in the show notes, but reducing randomness, which is stochasticity in data science terms, but context, what's the context that you give it, the information that you give it? If you're giving it the right kind of information, less likely to hallucinate. If you're telling it, the AI, what steps to take, the execution pathway, or your AI bots are using dreams, for example, and you're giving it instructions. But then another thing that comes up in all of that is like, how are you validating it as a human? How are you validating the information? So there are ways to reduce hallucinations. This, I don't know, because it's just a survey. What is the reasons people are saying that inaccuracies have been a thing, or that they're concerned about it? Do they know that there's these other ways? And I guess for you being out there, us being out there, teaching people that it is a spectrum, hallucinations can be controlled, but I don't think you can completely get rid of them with only the AI tools. I believe that you still have to have, at least for now, humans involved in the loop. But it's really
Agreed.
fascinating that this is now a year on from this, from the last time they did it, and it's been getting higher. And there's a lot of other trends that they've got in here. It's a really great report. I recommend people take a look.
And I think the inaccuracy piece is going to decline over time as the technology gets better and better. But talking about the RAG thing, you still have to be sure that the documents that you're referencing are relevant, because you can have old documents in there pulling data, and if you get a mix between something that is from 2024 versus last year's 2023, you're going to have a clashing or conflicting bit of information there.
Exactly, and RAG still can hallucinate.
Exactly.
And if it can still see answers, and then it's like, no, this is not in the document. It's like, no, it is. But you know that because you know, like,
Exactly.
you're using this as an assistant, not the oracle where all the information has to come from, and I don't look at anything else. You actually still have to do some
That's
work.
a very important piece.
But even all of this, right? People go, well, what's the freaking point? If I can't just point it to something, I don't want it at all. Sure, buddy. Like, you don't just instantaneously go from London to New York. Like, you still have to get in the plane and do all these things to get there. It's just faster now than it was a few years ago. We don't have that. But like, my point is, like, if something takes you 5 minutes to do or 10 minutes to do, but it used to take an hour or 2 hours, etc., that's still efficiency. You still want to use it. But there's some people out there like, well, if it doesn't do everything, I don't want it. Good luck. I'm going to continue innovating and pushing forward with this kind of stuff. And so are my clients, and so are yours.
Yep.
So
Precisely. The one that I think will be interesting, that will last a while, is the intellectual property aspect, which RAG does help to mitigate, but then also the cybersecurity aspect of it. I know in Australia we have some terrible cybersecurity infrastructure, like businesses either not, maybe look at all the stuff that's happened over the last couple of years with the leaks, everything from Telstra, Optus, Vodafone,
Yeah.
the works, all the way down to even health data, etc., that have been leaked recently over in the States. That is going to be a big space that's only going to get, I think, more important for businesses to focus on as AI comes out there. Because especially if you're able to do code generation, where is it getting that information from? If you're doing beyond RAG, if you're going out into the big world wide web for sourcing your informations and insights using your LLMs.
Do you mean the information superhighway, Chris?
Yeah, that information superhighway. It's the ability for businesses to be able to find ways into your organizations through these tools are going to also increase. And that's a pretty scary feat.
It's going to have to change the way that we do things on the internet as well, because things like that were mutually agreed, not that everyone followed it, mutually agreed ways if you're scraping, for example. Like there's a robots.txt file that is supposed to prevent you from doing certain types of scraping if you don't fit into one of these categories. I can't remember if they whitelist or blacklist, but whatever it is, robots.txt is just a file, a little txt file that sits on every website that says what you can and can't do with the scraping. And most things adhere to that, but there were, and this is from Wired as well, like companies like Perplexity purportedly ignoring that to scrape information. Now, that is like a limited way of protecting. There's server level and other types of security that you can have where if someone is on the list because they're paying, their royalties, their fees, whatever it is, whether that's blockchain because it's micro payments every time someone scrapes or something, or it's like more normal, traditional kind of methods of payment, by having some sort of contract that goes, well, I can see your IP address logs in, Chris. You're on the list. And it's server level. It's not just TXT level where you could get around it anyway. So I think we're just going to have to up our game in terms of security because it's not good enough anymore, given these things.
And just to clarify, like robot TST is like we're talking that's first level security. That's like the 101s of things that you should be doing, in addition to your SSLs for your online websites, etc. When it comes to the levels of security for the infrastructure for the data that sits within your business, though, that's a whole different ballgame of the stuff that needs to be put in place, and that is that's where the biggest risk is going to lie.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people are looking at, and it's for me it's exciting.
Yeah,
that if I was in that space,
Psych is a perfect example of an organization that is making the right feats. There's a plug from a friend who's making the right movements though to provide that level.
That was
of
AI dancing, by the way. That was not me.
That wasn't you.
No, that wasn't me.
I mean, you got Microsoft and Google who have always been doing things, but even there, I don't know how good their security is when it comes to their AI integrations with organizations. But
I'd hope it's pretty good. But look, everything that is good is getting better. Should be getting better, or the law of averages dictates as such.
Exactly.
But another thing that I thought was interesting this week was Ethan Mollick. If you don't follow him, you should on LinkedIn, you should on Twitter. He was talking about prompting being a thing of the past, because now you've got things, whether it's with Claude or even with other tools, Cloud, where you'll give Cloud a prompt, and I don't even know what accent that is. Cloud is basically, and other tools do this, like maybe just a bit more manual, but it can improve the prompt. So if I ask a question like, what is blockchain? That's a pretty poor prompt because I'm not like giving it much context, et cetera, et cetera. But if I said to the AI, I actually write this in myself, what is blockchain? Now look at this prompt, improve it, make it more robust, give you more education, tell me what to think of next. Then it will give you what is a good prompt, and then you can use that to actually ask a question and get a better answer. So these tools are fascinating because unlike coming from the world of data where I've come from before, I can't remember how my bot says it. Does it say data or data? I think it's data, but data. And so coming from that world, you couldn't do things with clients in terms of projects until you had clean information. You had to clean up the information first, and so it held up a lot of projects. But with AI, you can actually use it from the very get-go to even do those improvements, or like, hey, we've got this document missing. That's okay. The AI is going to help you fill that in. Knowing how to use it and like just being able to label where things are good, bad, filled in by AI, etc. I think there's a lot less barriers in the way. But you only find that out when you get immersed in this space, when you actually learn about it, or when you have like good people coming to your firm to talk about this kind of stuff, or you've got people that watch this show that go back to their business and show that we can do stuff sooner rather than later.
Exactly. There's a couple of interesting AI prompt generator tools out there. I'm trying to think of the one that is it Tuscade? Do you know about that one?
No.
That does an AI prompt generator. I think there is one called AI Generator or AI Prompt.com
Probably.
or something.
You could go to, we haven't done this, but have you heard of WebSim?
WebSim? No, please tell me.
WebSim is something where, and we'll play around with this on the show, but it's almost like intergalactic pay TV or cable, intergalactic cable, where basically you can make up what you want it to do. That was a Rick and Morty reference, by the way, folks.
I have played with this.
Up what you want the website to be. So I could say cats.ai.
Yeah.
And it will go, well, if it looks into its LLM and it goes, well, cats.ai is probably a website about AI cats and it's doing this, and so it will make up a website. Or you could just describe it, but like pretty cool.
There's a lot of people have like put little playful games in there as well as web platforms. I have played with this. Very cool.
Yeah, I think it actually takes code. Like if you say like Mario type game with blah, 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 like it must have code in there because it's not doing generation. Because when you look at some of the stuff that's out there, these are like proper assets. Like they're not, they're the type of stuff that with current AI, you would have to go back and forth with to make the game. So people have suspected that they've got some of these games in there, but they're still using AI to go, well, the users type this, I think they mean this, and delivering up something. But whether it's just normal websites, like you could make a website, like I said, about cats, or something else like a game, or even anything like Consultancy 101. If you gave that in, consultancy101.com.au, I bet it's going to make like a consulting type website or whatever. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Cool. I mean, that was an awesome chat. I think we've almost been going for an hour now. So
Yeah, pretty done. Pretty done.
Pretty done. So another week in tech and AI.
I think folks should check out like the different shorts that are created off of this that are going out on YouTube and TikTok as well. And we'll put those in the show notes. So make sure that you check out definitely the TikTok if you are one of those young ones that doesn't go on Instagram anymore. Are we doing it? We're not doing Instagram, are we?
No, haven't done
No,
Instagram.
Yeah, just TikTok. Maybe we should do Instagram. I don't know. No, it's too much work.
Just get AI to do it for us, mate.
You know, like going back to like references and stuff. There was
Campaign
like
generator.
There was when Homer becomes like the counselor for the garbage and stuff like that. He takes over, and his campaign catch cry was, "Can't someone else do it?" I think it's like, "Can't some AI do it?" I think that's where we're at right now, folks. So. Next on episode 4.
How are you not a dad?
Hey, who's to say I'm not?
Dad jokes are us. Let's go. I'm taking notes. I'm going to take these home to my kid. She's going to love me.
You never know. You never know. Anyways, folks, stay tuned for the next episode where I bring my baby.
Please like and subscribe. And if you want any more information or past episodes, go to digitalnexuspodcast.com. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.
Circuit board buzzing,
Get out of here.
worldwide. Tech trends blazing, digital fire. AI, rising to the sky. Digital world.